Welcome to Downshift, my name is Matt, and this is the new Mazda Cx90. And it's a completely new beginning from the ground up for the brand. It's a new architecture, new chassis, new engine generation, transmission, and a whole bunch of new technology. And it's pretty dang good. So today, I'm going to take you on a tour and show you all the coolest stuff going on with their new Cx90. The first thing is kind of the general BMW-ness going on here. It is a rear-wheel drive first chassis architecture, very much like BMW, but all CX90s come standard with all-wheel drive, which is pretty cool. And then in terms of the engines, you do have an option for a 3-liter or 3.3-liter straight 6 with a turbo. That sounds very BMW to me. This is the plug-in hybrid, but you can see it's still longitudinally mounted and it's mounted kind of behind the front wheels. So it is still pretty BMW in its essence. And another thing, look, underneath the hood, it's got this really cool matte or satin finish. I really like this paint, we'll talk about that later, but yes, very BMW indeed. Second is a couple Mazda Firsts. Now obviously this is the first plug-in hybrid we've seen from Mazda, but some smaller things as well. This is the first 21-inch wheel we've seen on a Mazda. It looks pretty good, this spec is gorgeous. And then stepping inside, there's a couple things as well. This is the first fully digital instrument cluster in a Mazda, and you've got some really cool animations for your drive modes that change the cluster slightly, but not a whole lot. And then this isn't equipped, but this is the first digital, or would be the first digital rear view mirror in a Mazda. Pretty cool stuff. And now I want to talk about the plug-in hybrid stuff. This, like I said, is the first plug-in hybrid from Mazda. It's a very familiar engine, 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It makes about 323 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque when combined with the electric motors. If you want to drive just on electric range only, you'll get about 26 to 27 miles of fully electric range on this thing, and this thing will recharge itself as you drive, which is very cool indeed. And if you do want to plug it in and you don't want to charge while you drive, this is your port, and it is noticeably bigger than the gas cap on the other side. And I want to talk about this button real quick. We've mentioned it a couple times. This is your charge target. You can see here that all of my electric range is gone. I've got no electric range reading here, but like I mentioned, if you just keep driving, this thing will recharge itself. You push this button here, and then it'll ask you the question, where do you want the battery to charge itself? I've been setting 100%, so it'll charge itself up to 100% as you drive along, and then you can drive back in EV mode. Very, very cool. And the next thing is in the startup screen. Watch as I turn the screen on. It's going to be the same color as the car that we're in. Artisan red. Very, very cool. Oh, and it'll ding at you for 30 minutes if you don't have your seatbelt already on. Another cluster thing is when you're driving along on the highway with cruise, it has little boxes along the side showing you that the car is recognizing the cars around you. But if you get too close to the one in front of you, it turns from a normal box into a car, and it looks very much like a Mazda 3 hatchback. And you know how I talked about the BMW-ness before? Well, this kind of reminds me in the running light of BMW's Angel Eye, which actually they're kind of going away from right now. But more interestingly than that even, is the way that it comes into the grille. You can see it kind of enters the grille housing on both sides with the running light. And then we have to talk about driver assist stuff. Now here we have the usual suspects. We've got adaptive cruise, we have blind spot monitoring, but we are very much missing lane centering assist. It has lane keep assist, so it'll kind of nudge the steering wheel if you're drifting out of your lane. But if you're coming in with any sort of force, it's not going to steer for you and keep you centered in your lane. Also, the other thing is the fact that you do have front and rear cross traffic alert, which is very, very nervous. So most of the time that I've been approaching or leaving an intersection, it's dinged at me because there's still a car getting through. So you have to be very, very patient. But what about towing? Well, each CX90, whether you get the straight 6 or the plug-in hybrid here, gets about 5,000 pounds of towing capacity, which is pretty impressive. And then we have to talk about this center screen here. Now it's pretty nice. It's a 12-inch screen. It looks very big. The graphics are very good, but it's kind of weird. It is not touchscreen in the normal Mazda UI. You have to use the control wheel. But if you slide over for wireless Apple CarPlay, awesome by the way, now all of a sudden it's touchscreen. It's pretty quick. It's really not bad. Now, this Mazda CX90, like all Mazdas, are much nicer and more luxurious than what you'd find in like a Toyota or a Nissan or anything like that. And sometimes niceness and luxury is defined by chrome, and it kind of is here. You get a parade of chrome on the outside of the car here. You get chrome surrounding your grille. You get chrome accented front radar detector / emblem. You've got front chrome splitter. You've got some kind of brushed aluminum. This isn't really chrome in your 21-inch wheels. You do have chrome on your front. I've been calling it the Mercedes front fender badge because you get this on all of the AMGs, whether it says Phev or inline 6 or straight 6. You get chrome down here for your lower rocker runner, and it's embossed with Mazda. And then weirdly, you have chrome for your upper window treatment, but not the lower. You've got chrome for your roof bars. And of course, around back, you've got chrome in your lower diffuser and for all of your badging. So plenty of chrome. But let's say you're not into chrome, but you are into gold. Well, you've got gold here on your outboard vents, but not here on your inboard ones. You've got gold piping and stitching across your dash, which is nice and squishy, by the way. You've got gold stitching for your center footrest or knee rest there. You've got it on the door cards. As you can see, we've got it on the seats for stitching, as well as this gold accent piece that goes up on your center dash console area, and even continuing into the rear and the third row. And then we're going to talk trunk. It is hands-free, so it'll open on its own, powered, which is very good. You've got the double buttons for the close and lock, which is great. And then with the third row up, it's kind of what you'd expect. It is manual release for the third row, which is pretty standard. The Palisade does offer power third row, but that's the only one in the segment that offers it. To be honest, with the third row down, it's kind of small compared to something like a Palisade or a Telluride or even a Pilot. But you do have some cool stuff. You've got 1500 watt inverter back here with a couple different outlets on either side, which is great. You've also got grocery bag hangers on either side, and underneath here you don't really have a lot of storage. This is where you'd store your portable or mobile charger, and you just don't have that deep of storage because that's where the battery is going to go for your plug-in hybrid. So decent trunk, not huge, but again, kind of in Mazda fashion. And while we're back here, I do want to mention the badging. We talked about it being chrome. That's pretty normal. That's pretty normal. All-wheel drive, yes, okay. But here, this will change. This is the eSkyActiv Phev. So that tells you that this is, in fact, the plug-in hybrid. And like we mentioned before, there's a further reminder on your front fender here. So it says Phev in a number of places because, of course, they're proud that this is their first Phev. And this one's kind of weird. I expect this for the plug-in hybrid. We don't have any exposed exhaust. Okay, normal, sure. But the 3.3 turbo inline 6 is pretty sporty and pretty powerful, and it also doesn't have exposed exhaust. So very subtle, very clean, very Mazda design. But let's talk second row here. Now your door opens completely, more or less, 90 degrees, which is really cool if you have kids. Another thing that's really cool if you have kids, you have shades to protect them from the harshness of, well, not the sun today, but some other day. And then you also have really nice materials, as we talked about, kind of continuing in through here. This seat does recline, it does slide forward and backward, and it's a mechanical release to get into the third row. So it's quick, it's easy, you can do it no problem. You slide it back into place. The thing that I don't love is you get this big hump here in the center, and to walk through, especially with the armrest up, it's really, really skinny to get into the third row here. You've also got this strange little like airline tray for your cup holders. I just really feel like this is going to get broken by some kid's foot pretty quickly. But even for myself at 6'1", I've got plenty of knee room. I've got good headroom. I do have a panoramic roof here, which is excellent. I've got my own climate vents, chargers, zones and controls, heated seat. You can get cooled seats back here. So ultimately, the second row is quite nice. Then I want to talk about this center console area right here. Now, you have a split opening, kind of like you'd find in a Mercedes. It's not super deep. You do have two USB-Cs in here, but again, it's not super deep. And as you can see, this thing takes up a lot of space. So it kind of seems less than practical. Like I'm getting the same amount of controls as I would in like a CX-5, which is like 3-4 inches skinnier. But anyway, you have your command center here. You've got your new shifter that goes like this and then that and then all sorts of ways. You got cup holders. This looks as if it's textured. It is not, but it looks that way. But again, I just feel like it looks nice. It looks premium and expensive, but it's just taking up more space than I think it needs to. It results in this feeling a little bit tighter, and the same thing on the passenger side. And then in terms of climate controls, you have physical buttons for everything, which is fantastic. Although, something that just kind of triggers me is to go cooler, you push the blue button down, which seems to make sense. But I then want to move the red button up to make it hotter, but you can only push it down. So maybe it's just a me nitpick, but it kind of gets my OCD going. And then I'm back in the third row here. And like I said, I'm 6'1". I can fit here without my knee hitting the back of the seat, but it's more about foot room problems. I can't even really fit both my feet underneath the seat in front of me, so I have to put my foot over here in the center, which means if there was another me over here, our feet would be touching. We'd be playing footsie. And Mazda is selling this with a third seat belt to suggest that you could fit 3 people back here. Now, you probably could if they're smaller than me, but it does feel pretty cramped back here. It's also pretty dark, but you do get some nice stuff. You get vents, you get a USB-C, and you get a couple cup holders on both sides. So it's tight. It's a very Mazda third row, let's say it that way. But then the front seats are much more spacious and comfortable. Like I said, they look great, they feel great, they are heated, they are cooled, and they're just nice and comfy. Now I want to talk about the reverse camera. So we'll shift over into reverse. You have 360 cameras. You still have the bars, but the resolution is actually pretty good. You go reversed a little bit, nice. The one thing I did notice is this seems to be pointed a little bit down more than I would like. I'd like it to point up a little bit more to see more what's going on in the parking lot rather than the pavement directly behind me. But this does have a really nice feature. You shift into drive, and now all of a sudden the front camera's on, and it will stay on up to 10 miles an hour. I love this feature. I don't know why more people don't do this with their 360 cameras. Your windows, one touch, all 4. And they're quick. And this is something I was surprised to see. There's not really anything in the way of ambient lighting in here, which again, I'm just kind of surprised to see. It's something with 3 rows and at this price point. And this may be just a one-off thing, but this is not really what I'm looking for from Mazda. I'm expecting a little bit better than this from them. So those are the 22 most interesting things going on with the new CX90. Now, be sure to stay tuned next week for our full and in-depth review of everything and our final comprehensive thoughts on the CX90. We'll see you then.